Once upon a time, there was a bird whose name was George. George was outgoing, outspoken, enjoyed the fullness of life. George was a free bird until one day his world was turned upside down when he encountered an oppressor. And this oppressor, by the name of Pharaoh, took George hostage, brought him into a place of captivity, illegally incarcerated George in a cage. George became a prisoner. George, who was once free, is now in bondage. George now is traumatized. He cannot do anything in his will because he has come under the control of this Pharaoh. Who can save George? George tried to cry out. He cried out. He chirped as loud as he could chirp, but nobody could hear George because he was under the influence. He was under the control of a strong, belligerent oppressor. So one day, after many years of being oppressed and awaiting his time for deliverance, he grew weak in heart, but his bones were still strong. His mind eventually succumbed to accepting his fate. But then one day his oppressor had a change of heart and decided to leave the house. But before he could leave that house, he opened up George's cage, and the door to the cage was wide open. And this was George's moment to taste freedom again. George's moment to spread his wings and to fly and to experience the totality of life, to shift or to migrate into his place of destiny. But this is what blew my mind. Though the door was open and freedom was calling George by his name, George was unwilling to leave the cage that represented captivity. He was unwilling to relinquish his affinity to this space that narrowed and undermined his potential. George never got to see how great he was or how great he could become, because this space also became his safety, because this became a place that he had now known. Though his oppressor was nowhere to be seen, George was now endangering himself because he could die in this place, because he depended fully on his oppressor to feed his belly. And now that his oppressor was gone and nowhere to be seen, George, if you don't come out of this cage, you will die undiscovered. You will die never been known. You will die never accessing the resources that have been placed on the inside of you. The cage is wide open. Freedom is beckoning. Freedom is calling you. George, come out of that cage, or you could die in that cage, wondering, what could I have been? How many lives would I have impacted? Could there be more to life? But I chose to remain in this cage because I was bitter. I chose to remain in this cage because I was traumatized. I chose to remain in this cage because I was unwilling to let go. I got comfortable in sin. I got comfortable in bondage. I got comfortable in darkness. And though the light is before me, I am unwilling to set foot into the light. And the oppressor deceived my mind that now all I see is darkness, though the light is before me. My God, George, come out. God has come to give you freedom. For whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Why would you want to die in that cage while you could experience life and life more abundantly. The cage was wide open, but George insisted on remaining in the cage. I got a question for you. What do you think happened to George? I want you to tell me in the comment section, what do you think eventually happened to George? Was he saved? Was he delivered? Or did he die in that cage? Please type your answers in the comment section, because George could very well be you.